So, hi, Luke. Welcome to the Smell Podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you. And yourself?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much. To get started, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself? Where are you from and where do you currently live?
Well, my name's Luke. I originally come from a small town, or well, city called Portsmouth. That's in the far south of the UK. But I now currently live in the west coast of Scotland, not too far away from Glasgow.
Awesome. It sounds like a nice place to live, grow up in. I was actually born in the UK, but I never
Ah,
spent
right.
any real time there. I was Air Force baby.
Okay. I have an idea whereabouts you would have been then.
Yeah, Lakenheath Air Force Base.
Mm,
Interesting. Okay, so yeah, I was really excited to find you on social media, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But to kind of get started with your background, what is basically your smell disorder, or if not a smell disorder, your taste disorder story? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
yeah. Okay. So mine's actually a taste disorder. I can't actually taste anything, although I can smell. So I've got the lesser of two evils. It started about 3 years ago, where I got hit in the side of the head by an underinflated soccer ball. Long story short, it perforated an eardrum explosively and dislocated one of my inner ear bones, and it required surgical intervention twice because I was left with dizziness and all sorts, and it meant that they had to go in, fix the hole in my eardrum and everything else from there. Um, what it actually had happened as well is that the nerves that run right at the top of the eardrum had been snagged during the surgery, and from the first surgery, all I was left was with a taste of salt. So I was chucking salt on into everything because it was the only thing I could taste. And then
Mm.
the second surgical intervention to try and fix my balance, I ended up losing my taste completely. So since about 2 years ago, I've had no taste at all. So it's been it's been a bit of a shock, but sort of like 2 years later, I'm used to it now. My wife is used to it, but the first 6 months were absolute hell. Just to put it bluntly, I was very grumpy, losing weight, wasn't eating. I just had a complete disinterest in food.
Well, yeah, I can imagine. Like, what's the point, if you
Oh
can't
yeah,
taste
yeah.
it?
And
Um,
it was even worse because I could smell it. So like one of the big things over here is like a bacon roll. So I could
mm.
smell the bacon roll. It's like, oh yeah, this is fantastic. But then when you eat it, nah, nothing. So
Yeah, and I've
yeah,
I've actually been running the Smell podcast for a little bit over 2 years, and I do like to focus on all things smell and taste. But typically, what that means for the guests that I interview is that because they've lost their sense of smell, they have a reduced sense of flavor. But I was so excited to find you on Instagram because you have your sense of smell and you don't have your sense of taste, which is extremely unique.
yeah, it's very rare from what I understand as well, because usually if your taste has gone, your sense of smell has gone. So I'm quite unique in that, but I've always loved food anyway. So I was glad to at least keep something.
Yeah. So I think it's called a juicia or a goosia. Do you know how to say it?
Uh, yeah, it's Adiusia.
A juicia. Okay. Yeah. So how do you think having this disorder impacts your relationship with food and eating? I mean, you just told me a little bit about a bacon roll, and that sounds delicious. But how do you
Yeah.
think it's changed you in the last few years?
To be honest, it really significantly changed my relationship with food. Before really losing my sense of taste, I was a particularly fussy eater. So one of the positive things that actually came out is that I could not stand eating fish. The
Mm.
best I could really get was eating fish fingers, and even then that was kind of a push because I wasn't really a fan of how it tasted. And growing up in a seaside city is a bit ironic that I don't like fish. But since losing my taste, I'm actually okay with eating it because I can't taste the sea. So and it's kind of like losing that saltiness, losing that bitterness. And in some seafoods, it's got almost slimy taste to things. And I can't taste that anymore now. So it's actually a lot more pleasant than it would be. So I'm eating a lot more fish, so I'm actually being a lot more healthy. But it also means that I have to think more about, or rather, we, my wife and myself, we think a bit more about how we actually eat food now, because if she's enjoying something, it might not mean that I'm necessarily enjoying it. So we have to look for things like textures. One of the things that's running quite a lot in the UK is like the food at home, and a lot of restaurants are running these things. There's one that we received the other day from Gauthier, which is a vegan restaurant, and I've never had anything quite like it. It's got lots of different textures. It's got lots of different smells. It's got lots of different things that actually makes it quite a pleasurable thing to eat. And again, that's not something we would necessarily have done if I hadn't lost my taste or we found out about it by accident. But again, it does change the relationship with food quite a lot if you can't taste things. A lot of things is just basically textures. And one of the things that we did find was that there wasn't really any resource there if you have no taste.
Mm-hmm.
And that was that kind of actually what was kickstarted the Instagram account to stop it also taking over the main account that my wife runs, the Greeklish Foodie.
Yeah, and so that actually leads me into that question for you. That's how I found you online. You are one half of the Instagram page, the Greeklish Foodie, and then you also have your own Instagram page, which you just alluded to, the Tasteless Foodie.
Yeah.
So let's start off by talking a little bit about your role as being one half of the Instagram page, the Greeklish Foodie. So what is that page about, and how did it come about?
Basically, it was born from a love of food. So it's sort of like in a sense keeping like a memory bank of things, but also showing where we've been. So like going to a restaurant one week or going to somewhere that's got something an Instagram page to say this is what we're offering. And we found it much better than using Facebook because you could actually interact better with the restaurants, but also lots of people who would go there would take their pictures, tag the restaurant, and you'd actually see what it looked like without the professional photographs.
Mm-hmm.
But also, if we wanted to travel anywhere, it was also a really good way to actually find places to go on the way to any particular destination. So when we lived right down south, we could check Instagram and see what there was, and then basically take pictures of the food, blog about it, say what we liked. One of the big areas that we had a bit of an issue with was just trying to find places to eat, and then sort of like it's just basically how to find food, what we ate, and just display it basically, and that's where that came from. But we also did lots of cooking from my wife's homeland of Greece, which is where the Greeklish comes in. She being Greek, me being English,
Mm-hmm.
and it was sort of like showing how you can make Greek style food using UK ingredients. So it is also helping to sort of like have a home away from home, so to speak, as well.
Yeah, I love the pictures and things that you guys post on there. They just look phenomenal all the time. It looks like you eat well.
Yeah, I could say that. But yeah, my
So,
wife's an extremely good cook.
yeah, no, I could tell. I'll make sure I include the links to both pages on the interview notes so everyone can go and find the pages if they don't already follow you. So, about how long has the Greeklish Foodie page existed? Did that happen prior to your accident?
Yes, it did. About 5, 6 years now, off the top of my head. It might be longer than that, but definitely six. Definitely 6 years.
Okay. And so then that kind of leads into the next question, which you talked about a little bit, but you have since started your own Instagram page, the
Yes.
Tasteless Foodie. So can you tell us a little bit more about that and then also your work as a blogger?
Yeah, of course. So that came about because I realised that my issue with the adulteria was started to take over the page completely. So it would be we'd go to one place, find it was great, reviewed it, talking about lots of the textures and things like that, and how it was for me. And it was taking away a lot of what was at the Greeklish Foodie was about. So I decided I'll start my own Instagram as the Tasteless Foodie, so I could actually post what I thought about things, sort of like pre-lockdown, how I would review something as well, and I would often always caveat with it that I may not have liked a particular restaurant, but it's because I couldn't get any enjoyment from the food because of texture, not necessarily because of taste. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought that was something that was really important for me because if I just sort of like go in just try it, not really enjoy it. Somebody else might because they can taste it, and normally if I could smell it, and it was usually phenomenal. But it's just I'm just sitting there eating. I'm just thinking I'm really not enjoying this, and eating food would actually be quite hard work. So and that's where some of the enjoyment would go, because my jaws are locking up because it's just like I'm just eating it just because I have to eat this.
Mm-hmm.
And then lockdown kind of changed things a bit when it became realised that losing the sense of smell, losing the sense of taste could actually be an indicator of actually catching COVID.
Mm-hmm.
It sort of made me realise, well, I've already experienced this for the past year and a half at that point anyway. And because of the experience and what I've learned having no taste, it's just basically sort of like given me a platform to sort of like say, okay, this is how I can help educate people and how to actually help them enjoy food again. So even if they don't get any taste back, they don't necessarily get any sense of smell back, they can still enjoy food without having to worry their fat friends, family. It's just sort of like give them a sense of normality, which I think is actually quite an important thing to do. And that's where the whole blog inside things comes along. As things have actually progressed, what I have realised is that the user Instagram may necessarily not be the correct platform for what I'm doing. And so I'm sort of like looking at the idea of actually having a blog, writing a few things, because I'm actually getting people messaging me on Instagram who have actually lost their sense of smell and taste. And it's been absolutely heartbreaking because they're complaining that they might actually just have to stop cooking completely because they can't trust themselves because of basically not being able to smell a fire. Or they've been sort of like the centre of the chef and they don't know how to basically do all their measurements, whereas they used to just be able to taste and say, yeah, that's fine. And
Right.
but it's just sort of like it's it's sort of like a work in progress at the moment, but there will be a blog at some point. I just don't know when yet. Trying to actually say this is how you can cook, this is how you can experience food, because I'm not the world's best cook, but I can say, right, just chuck a few breadcrumbs in, bang, here you go, chuck that on your burger. Here's a little bit of extra crunch for you when you're eating your burger, for example.
Well, if you have anything to do with the food that comes out on either of those pages, I think you're a better cook than you're giving yourself credit for.
I know. My wife cooks pretty much most of the time. I'm really a sous chef, so I'm basically cleaning as she goes.
Gotcha. Well, I will look forward very much to reading and sharing information about your blog when it's ready to go. So we'll have to keep in touch after the interview so I can update everyone about that.
Yeah, definitely, that would be a good thing.
So a question that is just popping up for me that I didn't prepare ahead of time is just, have you met anyone else like you? So anyone else who has only lost their sense of taste but still has a sense of smell?
Basically, no. No, it feels like I'm the only one. But my workplace are aware of my condition, but and they sort of like make allowances for me when I actually eat there. But no, it's very very rare for it to happen just to the sense of taste and not the smell. Um, my smell is a little reduced, but I can still smell what's going on. So I can still smell a fire. I can still smell if I'm burning bacon, anything like that.
That's helpful in terms of safety, but like you
Yeah,
mentioned at the beginning, that's got to be so frustrating when you make something so phenomenal that you want to eat and then it's
yeah,
just tasteless.
yeah. It's like a blank slate. It's really difficult to explain. The best way I found to sort of like if anyone actually wants to try and experience having no sense of taste, is to eat an ice cube before you eat.
Mm.
Literally, so you numb your tongue, and then when you try and eat after that, it's sort of like okay, things might be a little bit hot, but it gives you a sense of how it is not to be able to taste anything because you can't pick anything up very well. It's sort of like it deadens your tongue a little bit.
Right. And from personal experience, I have acquired anosmia. So for me, I have a very reduced sense of taste, but I still have the ability to perceive like the five basic tastes.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to imagine what it would be like to completely have no sense of taste. in addition to no smell, or even in your very unique situation where you do have smell. So it's really cool to talk to you.
Yeah, no, it's cool.
Hey, thanks for listening to the Smell Podcast on YouTube. Make sure that you connect with the podcast on social media. You can find me online at thesmellpodcast.com or on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at The Smell Podcast. Can't wait to see you there. So another question that kind of comes up from what you mentioned is that you talked about at your workplace, like they're aware of it and they'll make allowances for you as needed. So when your taste comes up in daily life, like when this experience that you're going through comes up in daily life, do you take the time to explain to people about your situation?
Yeah, it depends. It depends where I am. So with work, I'm in the Navy, which is why I'm up in Scotland. But they sort of like have this mass canteen bar, and you basically say what it is that you actually have an issue with. So if you've got like an allergy or anything like that, you tell them. And I told them one day, and I just said, look, I can't taste anything. So is there anything that you can do, like maybe cook something for a little bit longer, like the fries, just to make them a little bit extra crispier, just so I've got something, because otherwise everything's very one-dimensional. I'm sure if anyone listening to this is in the military, they know very well that generally military food is pretty bland and pretty tasteless anyway. So it's nothing really unusual. But if you approach them and just say, look, can you just cook this a little bit longer for me? They're more than happy to do that, because it's sort of like it just gives them a little bit extra to sort of like show a little bit of flair. Some of them will chuck in like curry powder, curry peppers, things like that, because basically it's one-dimensional cooking for them. So anything different is generally quite nice. But when it's coming to outside where I work, I generally do try and take the time if it comes up. The first few times it was horribly awkward, because of when you do when you go into a restaurant, you're talking to people, and then a waiter comes along and says, "How is everything?"
I love that question.
And it's literally, yeah, yeah. And because of the hesitancy, it's like, is something wrong? It's like, well, I can't taste anything. And then that leads to sort of like a 10-20 minute conversation with the waiter about how I can't actually taste anything. I've developed the habit now of sort of like pretending my mouth's full, nodding, just to sort of like not have to engage too much.
Right.
But
Yeah, great. Lovely.
it works really well. But if it's places where I go to quite often, two I would probably shout out is the Grill by Highland Wagyu near Perth and Broken Clock Cafe in Glasgow. They're aware of my condition, so they know that I can't taste anything. And especially Anna at Broken Clock, she makes lots of pastries and everything else like that, and it's like the really fine French patisseries.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever she comes up with anything new, we sometimes get something new when it's there, or if it hasn't sold out, or she's been really kind enough to put one by for us, and then she'll grill me about how it is. I'd literally really grill me. It's like, how's the texture? How's the cake in this? How's the cream? Is there too much? Is there too little? And it's kind of like, it's nice to actually be able to give that sort of feedback, because it just helps bring things up a little bit potentially. But she's a fantastic person in it as well as her other half, Artem, and they're always sort of like grilling me about how things are. It's just, but in that sense, I don't mind, because we've actually sort of like become quite friendly with them, and they know I'm not actually joking when I've got no sense of taste. Of in the grill, for example, they were quite interested in how it actually works, and Chris, who's the sommelier, sort of like fixed together a drink to see how bad it actually was. And it was this really, well, it was fine for me, but it was this really strong lemon drink. And it's literally like it's literally just squeezed from the lemon. I think it was about 3-4 of them in there. Little bit of soda water, and I had some, and I found it fantastic, because it was really cleansing my palate, so I loved it. And then my wife tried it, she pulled a face to say, "Oh my God, what's this?" And he
Right.
tried it as well, and it was just like, "How the hell can you drink that?" And so, well, I told you, I've got no taste.
Right.
So he would bring sort of like, okay, let's see what else you can do. So he brought some wine, and that was actually quite interesting as well, because you find that things try to make up for the fact that you can't taste something. So when I was having like a slightly sparkling wine, I could feel all the bubbles on my tongue, and it's just like, oh wow, okay. And Chris thought this is potentially something that I could taste, and I said, no, there's bubbles on it. It's really really faint, but there's bubbles. So I was quite excited,
Mm-hmm.
and then he tried it, and he said, I'd never realised the bubbles before, because it's so faint, but I could feel them, and it's just something that he could also introduce when he's selecting wines and recommending wines for people. So, and he started doing that with me a little bit as well. So it was nice to actually be able to sort of like be able to feedback and actually give like a different dimension to things. So, and it was nice to be able to do it.
Well, yeah, what a lovely experience to have people who see you in your condition. You know what I mean? Like they're not dismissing your story, they're understanding what you're saying. They're not disbelieving you and they just are like, "Okay," and then they see you. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I mean, even another restaurant we use, Nuku Nuku, in Glasgow, she knows again the extent of the fact that I can't taste anything. So her husband, when he's making the sushi things, chucks in lots of spices and things like that just to give me something extra.
Mhm.
And again, that's really really cool. That people actually go to that extent to try and help. Whereas previously it was just sort of like, well, I can't taste anything, so why should I bother? But it's sort of like people like them make you realize there are really good people out there who will help you as much as you can, especially when you can't experience things in the same way.
Exactly. So I'm wondering, it sounds like you still have the ability for like the bubbles, the carbonation, and then maybe like
Yeah.
trigeminal nerve reaction with spices and things.
Yeah, it's sort of like it's not a taste, it's just how it feels.
Yeah, exactly. I know what you're talking. I know what you mean. Yeah, I've had that where you can't really. I couldn't tell you exactly what the hot sauce tastes like, but I can tell you that it's hot.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm actually I do it with the wasabi challenge as well. I know it's
Oh,
not really done so much now, but I could just pop when you get something in like a Japanese restaurant, you've got that little side of wasabi. I can just pop that into my mouth now, not react, but I only get it coming back up when I actually am stupid enough to swallow it.
yeah. Ooh, wasabi sounds dangerous.
It can be, yeah.
Uh, so my next question is the one that I ask everyone who comes on the podcast, and there's no right or wrong answer. I'm just interested in your thought process. Do you self-identify as having a disability?
I will say yes and no. Yes, I recognise that it actually disables a lot of elements of my everyday life. So it's sort of like I have to rely on my wife telling me sometimes if I need to brush my teeth again, for example, because I can't taste it. um,
Mm-hmm.
or if we're in if we're anywhere really, and it's just sort of like when again being asked for food, and how it is, it's just again I can't answer that. So in that sense, yeah, I do consider myself disabled in that sense. But in the normal day to day life, no, it's not stopping me from doing pretty much most things. It's just that it's kind of like I don't know how to phrase this really. Yeah, so it doesn't stop me from doing the day to day and doing my regular thing. So it doesn't stop me doing that, and that that's one of the reasons why I don't consider it complete disablement. It's that there's an element of me that can't experience the world in the same way as somebody standing next to me might be able to. But I'm not stopped from doing anything physical or anything like that. So it's a yes and no, depending on the situation.
Gotcha. Good response. So, what would you like people who don't have a juicia to know about what it's like having it? Like, what's the one thing you just want them to know?
Um, it's very difficult to put it into words, but it is one of the most frustrating things that you could probably experience besides losing the sense of smell. Doing the little thing that I suggested earlier, um, having an ice cube, swill it around in the mouth, and then try and eat gives you a sense of what it is like to actually have no sense of taste. But they then have to think about that being 24/7 instead of for a minute or two. And that's probably the best way to illustrate how it is to have no sense of taste. But generally, it's just try to be patient. If you're working in the hospitality industry, again, just try not to ask how the food is, because I just don't. It's not the question I really like answering the best of all.
Right. You can defer to your wife in those situations, but it's
Yeah,
still frustrating.
or I'll just pretend I'm eating and just nod my head.
Oh, I've just like straight up lied to people before because it's easier than getting into it.
Yeah, but I find it really difficult to actually say, oh yeah, it was fantastic, I really loved it, and then the
Right.
following question is always, so how was it? How did it taste? What was really good
Mm,
about it?
yeah.
So if I've just got my mouth full and I'm just nodding my head, they just leave me alone.
Yeah. Smart move.
It works.
um, so next, I think I have an idea of what you'll say, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts. If you could have a sense of taste again, would you want one?
I will say yes, because there are foods that I do miss, but at the same time, because I am eating healthier now, I'm eating a lot less rubbish, or trash. It's been both a blessing and a curse. It's a curse that I can't taste anything, but at the same time, it's a blessing because I'm actually opened up on what I actually eat. So it's good in that sense. But at the same time, being able to help people as well, sort of like understand the condition a bit, especially with those who are suffering from COVID and having no sense of taste or smell, is that you don't necessarily have to worry so much about not being able to taste or necessarily being able to smell. There are ways around things, so you can experience and enjoy things along with people who do still have a sense of taste and have a sense of smell. It just means that you have to experience things differently. So I'll say, yeah, there are things that I miss, but at the same time, no, it's actually been beneficial for, in a sense, to not be able to taste.
Yeah, it's nuanced.
Yeah,
Do you have anything else that you'd like to share?
nothing that I can really think of. Just be patient with people who can't smell and can't taste anything. It's just that we have to be a little bit more nuanced and a little bit more considerate as to how we answer questions.
Mm-hmm. And then my last question for you is how can listeners find you on both of your Instagrams?
Okay, so the main account is Greeklish Foodies. You'll know if you find it because it's usually a picture of, I think it's me and my wife. I really should check that. Uh, I was looking at it this morning and I completely forgot what the logo is, but it will have a little blurb about her being Greek, me being English, and that we love to eat. And in there you'll see lots of different recipes, what she's been cooking up lately. I think at the time of this one, she has done the Christmas pasta. No,
Mm.
Christmas mac and cheese. That was it. Where she's chucked some sort of like Christmas spices into regular mac and cheese, and it's yeah, that was actually really nice. I enjoyed that. So that's how you kind of know that you'll be on the right page because of the Christmas mac and cheese. And for me, it's the Tasteless Foodie, which is all one word. Um, Originally, my wife suggested living without taste, but when I typed that out, it was a really, really long and looked really awkward. And then the Tasteless Foodie, that's just like, yeah,
That's
it's
perfect.
it works. I can't taste anything. My sense of style is absolutely dreadful, so it works in that sense as well. Uh, and generally, you can tell if I've been taking pictures because it looks like it's been done on a potato or something, because I keep cracking all the camera screens and everything, so I'm quite clumsy in that regard. I don't really post a huge amount at the moment because obviously lots of hospitality workers really need all the help that they can get. So I'm sort of like hanging back from what I actually do say on that because it could be seen as unsupportive, and lots of people are trying to support hospitality at the moment. So you'll just see the occasional post from me saying, "This is what's been made. Oh, I visited here, and this is what's been really good." Um, yeah, and that's generally where you'll find us on social media. There is sort of like a Facebook page for both the Greeklish Foodie There is one for the Tasteless Foodie, but I haven't put anything on that because I'm an absolute moron when it comes to actually using social media at all. So,
Well, I'll make sure that I add links to all of the Instagrams and the Facebook pages.
certainly the Greeklish Foodie one. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
The Tasteless Foodie, definitely not, because I don't know what I'm doing with that. I'll get around to it eventually, but I think there will be a blog because I think that's really the forum that would suit this kind of thing a bit better than trying to do it on Instagram, because me and social media, nah, it doesn't really work.
Yeah, well, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. Like I said at the beginning, I've done this podcast for over 2 years, and you're the first person I've met who has no sense of taste but has a sense of smell. So I was very excited to share your story with everyone and just kind of raise some more awareness about what it's like to have life with a juice. Yeah.
Yeah, it was wonderful to actually share the story and to try and actually explain how things are. Hopefully, I've done that, but we'll see from the reactions, I guess.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. Thank you.